Now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com, covering the Big 12 for rattleandhumsports.com. Kevin Lonnquist. How you doing, Kevin?
Good to talk to you, Bryan. I'm doing great. Thanks.
Thanks very much for being on with us again, as always, on Fridays. We would normally be talking about the big game of the week in the Big 12, and that would be West Virginia, Texas. But then all this stuff goes down with Casey Pawhall getting arrested for a DWI, spending the night in jail in Mansfield, and then being suspended indefinitely. I don't have any idea what indefinitely means. Does that mean he's going to sit out a play? Is he going to be out of game? Is he going to be out for the year?
Well, according to what I've read and just talking to a couple of people who have tracked it, it sounds like that Paul Hall will be dressed for the game, will be on the sideline. This was as of late Thursday, and he will not play in the game against Iowa State. Now, what that means after, at least that's the word going forward. What this means beyond Iowa State, I don't know. It's, I think, where this whole thing with Casey Pawhall stands as far as TCU is concerned, is that it really puts this program in a really difficult spot. And obviously, it does the same thing with Gary Patterson, because there's no question that Casey Pawhall is an extremely talented quarterback. He has talent, has a great arm, can move in the pocket when he needs to. He can actually be a runner when they need to as well. But he's got a problem. He's got some personal things that he's got to work through. I mean, remember when the season started, before TCU even opened up fall camp, there was the story that broke by the TCU newspaper when they got the Freedom of Information Act request on the police affidavits when the whole TCU drug bust went down in February, where Paul Hall had admitted to police that he had used several of illegal substances. And so if you take that, and he wasn't suspended for the opener against Grambling State, which really threw everyone into a bit of a what's going on here and why is he not being suspended for this game, in which Patterson took some heat from the media about that. And I don't know what Gary's mindset is on that. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon when they play the Cyclones, and I'm going to just watch this and see how this whole thing plays out and then what is said in the postgame, because I just don't know what Gary wants to do here. I mean, you know, there was an incident with the University of Missouri last night, or I think it was Wednesday, where 5 players, including one of their top players, a wide receiver, Dorial Beckham-Green, they were busted for pot, and then all of them got a 1-game suspension. They were all suspended for the game against Vanderbilt this week. And TCU has a little bit more of a gray area working here as to what this really means. And personally, I'm not going to play judge and jury on what Gary's done to this point, but I can say that if you've got someone who has a behavioral issue or who has demon issues, if you will, to this kind of thing, and it's very serious, because we're not even talking about the kid's athletic ability now. We're talking about his life. And so I want to find out tomorrow if this is something that TCU is going to deal with the right way, or what's more important to them. Do they want to make sure that they're treating Casey Pawhall, the person, or Casey Pawhall, the quarterback? It's my hope that they will look at this and make a formative decision by Sunday. Gary Patterson has said that he wants to make something more definite by Sunday. I hope he's right, that he's just using the preparation for Iowa State as the focus of this. There's just gone so many different directions that, you know, Gary's got a lot of heat for this, and I'm just not sure what he wants to do here. I would hope that they put Casey, you know, that his personal life, because this is his future in life, that comes before throwing a football.
Yeah, you don't want to start out as a Big 12 member with people viewing your program as an outlaw program, with the 5 guys that were, you know, arrested and then kicked off the team in the offseason with the big drug scandal, and then Paul Hall's issues in the preseason, and now Paul Hall again. I mean, this stuff starts to stack up, and you start building a reputation you don't want.
Yeah, and plus the fact that also lends to the perception, and it's a perception problem now that's starting to go over there, especially if he doesn't handle this by what third-party observers will see this. If he doesn't handle this the right way according to the third-party observers, and I guess you can throw me right into that mix, is, you know, are we trying to win here, or are we trying to do the right thing here? And I think, you know, given that situation with them, is that you don't want one player to hold your program hostage. You know, they've worked so hard over the last 12 years to put themselves in a position where July 1st of this year, when they officially joined the Big 12, was a great day. when they won the Rose Bowl against Wisconsin a couple of years ago. Great moment for them. But I somehow seem to think that if you don't handle this right, not only you're going to be viewed as an outlaw program by third-party circles, you're going to be viewed as a coach who doesn't have control of it either.
Right.
And Gary's one of those guys that he's very hands-on in just about every facet of that program. And so if that perception starts to grow about him not having control over it, it's going to get worse. And to be on the surface, Bryan, here's what I'll say. I would rather that Casey Paul and the university come to some agreement that he is, and again, I'll make a final determination when I go to the game on Saturday. But I would really hope that the university and Paul Hall sit down maybe Saturday night or Sunday, and some announcement is made early first part of next week where they say Casey Paul Hall is entering some sort of treatment program, and although he's still considered a member of the TCU football team, he will not be playing this year, and we will reconsider and readdress his situation following the completion of that rehab program by the spring practices of 2013. And I think that would be a great way for them to handle it. But again, I'm not them, and so I can't make their decisions for them. But that would be, to me, the humane thing to do. You kind of keep Casey involved in the program, but he also understands that there are some boundaries that and some things and some expectations that he has to meet in order to get this right for himself personally. Absolutely. And I think TC would absolutely build a lot of equity with people nationwide and within their own fan base and their alumni by doing this.
Absolutely. All right, Kevin Lonnquist from RattleandHumpSports.com on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM. Last week, Geno Smith just absolutely torched a terrible Baylor team. The numbers were, just astronomical, okay? But it was against a really bad defense. So how do you weigh that performance based on what he was throwing against?
Well, it's a great question because Phil Bennett's defense at Baylor has been getting absolutely ridiculed by the national press and by the local press and the Big 12 press pretty much all season. Even as I think the one thing about Phil Bennett's defense is the fact that his blitz schemes are not that creative. They're fairly easy to predict. There was one touchdown pass where West Virginia faced a 3rd and 7, and the Bears only brought 3, and so that made it pretty easy to try and dissect what the defense was doing and to pick it apart. Baylor's a bad defense, but West Virginia's a really, really good offense. I think let's look at it this way, Bryan. As bad as the Baylor defense was, West Virginia's defense was awful too.
Absolutely.
And really, it's kind of a confounding scenario because really both these offenses executed at such an amazing execution rate, if you will. It was, you don't see that. I think maybe it was an anomaly. Maybe you're going to see a lot more scores like what we saw with Texas-Oklahoma State of 41-36. But that was some really great execution of offense. And we reached a stage in college football where the offenses, especially in the Big 12, are just so far advanced because kids can get out on the perimeter and make plays. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're more athletic. And they know what they're going to do before the defensive back or the linebacker is going to do, and that puts the defensive player in a real precarious position. We just saw a great execution. And again, it's bad defense. I get that. I think West Virginia will still move the football very well this weekend in Austin. Texas's defense has been susceptible to the big plays this year. They're going to have to obviously get a lot of pressure on Geno Smith, but I think Geno Smith is just an amazing quarterback. He's this year's version of Robert Griffin. Maybe not the kind of runner that RG3 was, but you can't deny his precision in passing. When you're 45 out of 51, I don't care if that's against Baylor or if that's against your Sandlot defense, that's really hard to do. And he's just got a really great command of the offense. It's going to be a great test down there in Austin. And I think West Virginia's offense is really good. The question for West Virginia on Saturday night in Austin is going to be whether or not their defense can really be physical enough to handle Texas's running game.
What do you think?
I think that they'll get hurt a lot. I think that Texas I think Texas caught a second win. Bryan, I think I told you last week I thought that they were going to win in Stillwater if they took care of the turnovers, which they did. They were very good, and obviously, and their running back depth is show because when you lose Malcolm Brown, who isn't going to play this week, but then you have Joe Bergeron and Jonathan Gray. That's a pretty good combination to still have back there. And then David Ash makes a great throw to Mike Davis that sets up the go-ahead score for Texas. I really think that West Virginia's defense is going to have some problems matching up against them. I think the whole attitude of Texas, they've been kind of building toward this moment that they seem to have gotten their second win. I don't think West Virginia's kids are going to be intimidated at all. Dana Holgorsen has said that's not going to be a big deal for them, and he's right. I mean, West Virginia's program, let's keep in mind, they've been in several BCS games. They beat Georgia. Let's remember, they went to the Sugar Bowl when it got moved to Atlanta one year, and they played Georgia, and that's like Athens East,
exactly,
or Athens West in Atlanta, and beat Georgia there. West Virginia did, and then they've gone to Auburn. They've been to LSU. They've been in a couple of BCS other games. So this program understands about and relishing and succeeding in very big environments. So I don't see West Virginia backing down against Texas. I think they'll play them toe-to-toe. I think Texas will find a way to win the football game, but I think it's going to be a really good battle because Texas will be just a little bit more physical with its running game.
We got a couple of minutes left, so we got to hit these kind of quickly. But
yes, sir.
Oklahoma plays at Texas Tech, and the way Oklahoma's been playing, I mean, suddenly Tech looks like they could pull this thing off.
Yeah, I mean, OU hasn't won in Lubbock since 2003. Tech's been very solid defensively, number one defense in the nation under Art Kaufman. Now, they haven't really faced great competition, but they did pull off a nice win on the road at Iowa State. What we want to see in this game for OU is how Landry Jones is and how the Sooners are mentally in that first quarter. If they've used the bye week to their advantage to kind of recover from the K-State game, then I think they'll be fine, and maybe they'll get a shot. But I think that's going to be a close game. And
the other thing is, has Mike Gundy got his head back on his shoulders after it exploded last week when the replay didn't give him the fumble back?
Yeah, he's still been going on about this. I think it's good for Oklahoma State. The timing of it is probably good that they have a week off to talk about it. Yeah, it was a really controversial call, and then there was a report that came out saying that the coordinator of officials for Oklahoma State, for the Big 12, had apologized for him, and then the Big 12 disputed that, saying Walt Anderson did not apologize to them, so there's that kind of thing. It's a controversial play. I'm sorry it didn't work out for the Cowboys, but then the Cowboys shouldn't have been allowing about a 40-yard pass play that puts Texas in position to win the game either. But against the defensive back who's projected to be an NFL draftable player.
Good point. Very good point. Hey, great stuff, Kevin. Thanks very much for coming on with us. We love to read your stuff in rattleandhumpsports.com. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Always a pleasure, Brian. Thank you.
Good talking to you. Kevin Lonnquist from Rattle and Hum Sports, the website rattleandhumpsports.com on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.